All right, cool. So let me kind of start this off with two polls, right? Um, and these two polls are just for me to get a sense and for you also to think a little bit about what is it that we want to kind of go through this session for an hour. And thank you both for joining, right? And basically say what is it that we are going to learn from this. And it's both a webinar and a workshop in a sense that I'm going to talk about a few things, and then I would elicit responses from you guys. So let me launch this poll, the first poll, which basically talks about um, what do you lead? I mean, I know both of you, but still go ahead and do this because it'll give me a sense of understanding uh, what do you lead today. Okay, so both of you have indicated individual contributors who leads with ideas. So having said that, let me launch the second poll, right? And the second poll is, give me a minute here. For some reason, Zoom puts polls into a different menu. The second poll is, what is your definition of an impactful leader? Because both of you are individual contributors who lead with ideas. So what's your definition? How do you look at it? Very short answer, just you couple of lines. And I see another person is joining. So basically, Bhavesh, you just joined. I was doing a second poll about what's your definition of an impactful leader. Um, I did a first poll saying, what do you lead? So if I see one answer so far, any other inputs? If not, I'm going to end this poll. Okay. So the reason I did this poll is people in general uh, try to associate leadership with a manager. So you don't have to lead. You don't have to have people reporting to you. You could just lead, in your community. You could lead in your workplace with ideas. So that's my definition of leader here, right? And that is one of the bases of this whole presentation and workshop, right? Which is basically think about leadership as leading something, and everybody in that sense is a leader. You could be a leader in your family, you could be a leader in your community, could be a leader in your workplace, right? So with that, let's just go into the premise that I want to talk about. So this is an interesting metaphor and analogy that I built just so that we understand the ingredients of impactful leadership, right? So let's see what's going on here, right? Let's say you want to build this, you want to cut stuff and build this fruit salad, or kind of you're preparing this fruit salad. That's what you're trying to do, right? And while you're trying to prepare this fruit salad, you have ingredients, right? And if I look at this bowl, you have raspberries, blackberries, grapes, blueberries, kiwi, apples, and oranges. So these are the ingredients to build this fruit salad, right? So now what you could do is you could follow a process which says wash the unwashed fruits, put the raspberries, put the grapes, etc., 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 cut the kiwi, whatever is not cut. Or you could take that entire process and make it small and say, hey, just wash, peel, and cut whatever needs to be washed, peeled, and cut, and put the ingredients in a bowl. So this is, you got the ingredients, you got a process, and you got an outcome. The outcome is staring at you on the screen, right? So now what you could do is, let's say you want to do this, you go to the store to buy the ingredients, and you find that all of these ingredients are there in a ready-made packet, ready to eat kind of stuff. So all you have to do, the process changes, right? You just put all the ingredients in the bowl, and there you have your salad, fruit salad, right? The other thing is, you could go to the store, not find these ingredients, and you could say, well, I don't have raspberries, blackberries, and apples, right? However, I found oranges, strawberries, melon, pineapple, because you see the picture, and grapefruit, because I couldn't figure out if it was a melon or a pineapple, right? And basically, the outcome of those ingredients is different. So now the fruit salad looks a little different. And why, depending on what the size of the container is, you could put some of it and some might even spill out. So you basically got a different set of ingredients and a different outcome. However, the process is the same, which is wash, peel, and cut and put ingredients in the bowl. And if it's readily available, you just put the ingredients in the bowl. So look at it, you got ingredients, and then you got process, and you got outcome. You got three things. So now you might want to make a fruit salad like this, which is this almost the same as the first outcome that I had. Just that little thing on the top, which is, you have one additional ingredient. So, however, given the fact, and some of us are from India, our definition in India of a fruit salad looks like this, which is there's custard in the bowl, right? There's custard and fruits. So that's how fruit salads are defined there. In the US, fruit salad is basically not without the custard. Or even in the UK, the fruit salad is with a custard. So now you see the ingredients have changed. So basically, depending on what ingredients you put in and which process you follow, you get 4 different outcomes here. Okay. So, but one of the things that I want to illustrate here is that if you use the first process, wash, peel, and cut, and put ingredients in the bowl, you could actually get 2 different outcomes, depending on what ingredients are available. And the same, right? Even in the second process, you can get 2 different outcomes. But if you want a unique outcome, like the one with custard, which is the last one here, right? You get it. There's only one process to follow. Put custard, depending on the ingredients, put it in the bowl, right? So what I'm really talking about here is ingredients, processes, and outcomes. Okay. So now let's start with the outcome. And this session is about ingredients of impactful leadership. So the outcome here is impactful leadership. And we defined with those 2 polls what the outcome is. The ingredients is what I'm going to talk about today, not about the process, because I follow my own process, and with with most of the people who I work with. And the process is called adapt. I may or may not have shared this or shared it with a client, but internally, this is the process that I'm following, which is assess, what is going on, decide what you need to do, uh, put a little more emphasis on the emotions, and then go into the performance in the teams. A lot of people think about the outcome of the performance in the teams and forget or ignore the first. So that's a process. So I'm not going to talk about this process today. I'm just going to talk about the ingredients. So I'm going to share 4 ingredients with you. So let's start with the first ingredients. And if you don't have these ingredients, you will not get the outcome that you need. And this is experience, both experience in IT as a leader, technology as a leader for 35 years, also in the last 3 years as I've started coaching people and working with people, right, to get impactful outcomes. So the first ingredient here is challenges. And the way I'm going to follow this is I'm going to take a couple of slides, explain what it is, what am I talking about, and then ask you to kind of do a quick poll, just like I did earlier, and get some response from you and get you guys thinking. Maybe you take notes and stuff like that, whatever it is. Get you thinking about some of these ingredients because if these are essential to get outcomes. So let's start with challenges, right? So challenge is, as you see this picture, it's rolling a big stone up a hill. That's what challenge. So it's not like a small challenge. Oh, I have to go, water my lawn or something. It's a big challenge. It could be in your workplace. It could be in your personal life. It could be in the community that you lead. But you're a leader. You have some challenges. So what I have noticed, and I did a survey of 75 leaders across different industries, and we got categorization of those challenges into 5 different buckets. So the first challenge that people always talk about is performance. My performance, my team's performance. I want impactful outcome about my own performance. I want to be a leader or something, or I want my team to be a high performance team. That's the first that we see. The second that we see is do more with less resources. That is, I need to this year. I mean, I'm going to go into corporate speak. Basically, last year I got 10 people and $1 million. I was able to achieve something. This year now I have 8 people and I've got less than $1 million. So resources in this case is people and money, right? That or it could also be hardware, or I'm I have to extend the life of my laptop for 5 years and it's dying or something like that. So that's a corporate stuff. It's the same in our personal lives and everything else that we lead. So do more with less resources. The third is very interesting, and I use this term and I call it effective global teams. And I'm going to stress on the word global. Well, global doesn't necessarily mean that you're sitting in the US and working with somebody in Romania. Global here means it could be anybody outside of your direct team. So my direct team could be, 3 people in India, 2 people in Romania, and me. But then when I go into an organization, I start to work with others outside of the team. I have to manage without authority on those people. How do I do that? And it could be, when I say outside of direct team, it could be inside or outside the organization, right? How do I work with a team? How do I partner with some team, right? When I have to sell something, how do I partner with somebody and make it a better? So that could be a third challenge. The fourth challenge is streamline workflows. I've come across this. A lot of people say, "Hey, you know what? We know how to do agile process." The sales team doesn't, or the sales people say, hey, we know how to do this, but we are not getting the product right in time. So you got to streamline the workflow. So basically, that's the fourth challenge that everybody faces. The fifth is new vision. So new vision, there are multiple ways of thinking of this. One is if you're in corporate and you're reporting to somebody, right? You're direct to somebody, and then suddenly, through a series of reorganizations, now your boss changes. See, your new boss has a new vision. He doesn't want you to kind of work in a certain things, stop doing a few things, start doing a few things, etc., etc. That's a new vision. That's basically inside a big corporation that runs. Smaller companies that I work with, they some very often, and this is I've come across this many times, the CEO changes, and the CEO and the board changes, the ownership of the company changes, right? And now they've got new vision. Hey, we don't want to go into the cloud, we want to go in a different direction. So you have to manage. These are the kind of challenges. So at this point, I'm going to basically do a poll, and I don't know why this keeps jumping. Do a poll, launch a poll, and basically see and just think about one challenge, because there are multiple challenges all of us face. Think about your most biggest challenge, and I'm going to launch this poll, which basically says, where does the challenge fit? And I've got this none of the above option. It's basically just to understand if your particular challenge doesn't fit into one of these five. So I've launched the poll. I'm going to wait for you guys to select. Okay. So I see people are selecting multiple. And if if you don't have to necessarily think about corporate, you just think about what kind of challenge you fit, you face at this point and fit into one of these. Okay, so we have some answers, and by the way, it happens that all of these five have got selected. Nobody selected none of the above, which go, I can believe that basically this is how it. So why do I do this, right? It's like, think about the challenge, make sure you know what the challenge is. So as we go towards the end of this presentation, I will share some resources with you. One of them is a worksheet that I built, and you can use that worksheet as something that you understand and keep these challenges in there in that worksheet. Okay. All right. Let me move on. Let's see. Performance. Okay. Cool. Everybody's answered. All right. Let's move on to the next one. Okay. If there are any questions on the first challenge or on the first ingredient challenge, please use the chat, and or you can unmute yourself and speak or ask a question. Okay. So nothing so far. So let's go to the next one. And I call this zones, and you see a picture of comfort zone, right? We use this word a lot. Comfort zone, right? We say, hey, are you in your comfort zone? So what I've done is a little play on the words here. Instead of just using comfort zone, I've kind of done it and call it zone of comfort. So I talk about the zone, right? So what's the zone of comfort? Let's just understand a little more. You feel safe. You're in control. You feel I'm comfortable, right? And the interesting thing about the zone of comfort is that a lot of us fall into that zone, I'm not saying it's good or bad, right? Because it could be good also, because if you feel that you feel safe and you're in control, you're in a zone of comfort, which is good. However, a lot of people feel that they go into the next zone. And let me explain why. One is you might individually have an aspiration to grow, okay? And you want to go from zone of comfort to zone of growth, which is on the extreme right of the screen, right? And in order to go from zone of comfort to zone of growth, you personally go into what is the next step that I have to take. What happens in that is the next zone is actually zone of fear. You don't go from comfort to growth straight away, right? This could be one thing that you personally take this step. The other could be you're forced to take this step, right? The organization wants to grow, and basically you're forced to, or you might take on a new role, or you might be promoted, and all of a sudden, this happened to me personally, right? When I was at Oracle, and I'm talking about at least 20 years ago, and I was a senior director technology, and I became a vice president. And vice president has to know business. And I started saying, hey, you know what? I do not understand really Oracle's business. I've been in that role in smaller companies, but Oracle's such a big company. And then I was trying to figure out what is it that, am I an imposter? Should I have been a VP at Oracle? Should I go back to being a senior director and manage technology? Because now it's a question of technology and business. And so, what do I have to do? What are my habits that I have to change? What are the perceptions that I carry that I need to change? One of the other perceptions that I had is I'm not good at sales. I'm a technology guy. But then I had to change that perception over time. Uh, Behaviors. What are the behaviors that I have to change? One of my clients that I work with came to me and said, hey, Vikram, I have this behavior that every time I get into a meeting and somebody's presenting, I feel like interrupting and I interrupt. I'm like, how do I change that? And he was afraid of that. He was afraid of the fact that he would interrupt. He just couldn't hold himself. Um, and then you feel like an imposter, right? So you basically are affected by opinions of others. You lack self-confidence, and as a result, you find excuses and not results. I can't do this. I'm afraid, or something of that sort. So you're really gone into from your zone of comfort to your zone of fear. Now, here is one thing that you need to do at this point. I mean, you can overcome fear by knowing. So we don't know what we don't know, right? So moment we go from zone of comfort to zone of, get into the zone of fear, we are actually encountering things that we don't know. So let's know it. So that's why I call it the zone of knowledge. Let me know what I need to do. And so basically, these are the questions that come up. Where am I? What should I do? What should I stop doing? What should I start doing? Right? And what are the tools and techniques that I need to learn that work so that I can grow and go to the next step? Right. Now, having said that, let's say you're acquiring new skills in the zone of knowledge, you're dealing with these challenges that we spoke about earlier, and then finally you get into the zone of growth. So, zone of growth, now you are talking about what are my goals? Who do I want around me? How do I influence others in my team? Am I a leader or a manager? Just hold on to that question, because remember, my first goal was, who do you lead? And a lot of people get confused as to, there are a lot of definitions over the years, right? And I'll share one with you towards the end of the session, right? But basically, this is where you start really growing. So this has happened to me. And yesterday, by the way, I was talking to a client, and he identified 4 things that he needs to do to grow. And then eventually came back and said, no, no, no. Actually, there are 3. The fourth is to grow, right? grow within the organization, whatever he wanted to do. So basically, once you do this, now here's the interesting thing that happens as you grow. You actually go back into your zone of comfort because now you've grown and you're comfortable again, right? So you're back to zone of comfort, and the whole thing happens again. So it's like an iterative circle. Is the question is how often does this happen? In technology industry where I've been, I've noticed 2 to 3 years. I know the technology. Maybe I'm just talking about programming language. I know C, right? In 3 years, suddenly 3++, C++ comes in. Now I know C++. In 3 years, Java comes in. So that is in technology. That's the rate of change that's going on, right? And basically so on and so forth. Today there are all kinds of 4G languages going on. So this whole cycle keeps repeating. It never stops. But every time you're in the zone of comfort, you say, okay, what are my challenges and what zone am I in, right? So with this, let me just show you that it keeps going. Let me launch a poll and see if you are able to figure out with your particular challenge, which zone do you feel you're in? So let me launch this poll. Which is your zone? Are you in comfort, happy and control, fear, which is basically I don't know a lot of things, knowledge, I've learned some new things, and growth. Where do I go next? So waiting for you guys to answer. Looks like everybody's answered. And we have a mix of fear and knowledge. So the point here is if you're in your zone of fear and you want to grow, you have to start learning new things. You have to go into a zone of knowledge. So that's the second ingredient for impactful leadership. Now let's move on to the third. And I might have shared this with some of you, but this is an ingredient that is very interesting and very important. So there's you, the individual, right? You've got your own habits, you've got your own behaviors, you've got your own perceptions, right? And you see that man standing on the left on a seesaw, trying to do balance, right? And that's what we call balance. So you are the person on that seesaw. Okay. So on one side, you have results, which is you have goals, you've got challenges, and you want successful outcomes. And on the other side, you have relationships with others in your team, in the organization, also relationships outside of the organization. A lot of people forget this, right? They basically I have noticed this, especially in technology companies, that your relationship is contained within your team, or your relationship is contained with your org. But remember, there's whole world out there, right? You're also building relationship, social relationships, uh, professional relationships with others. And so basically, you need to do this. And unfortunately, again, and my experience has been in technology, so I'm going to use a lot of those examples. Is that I've noticed that programmers, for example, and I've not once, not twice, multiple times over my 35-year career, I've noticed people come in and start coding straight away. If they're in the office, they start coding, and they don't even say hello to the people on the other two sides, right? So they're not. There is no relationship that they are building with them. They're like, okay, I'm a programmer. That's it. I'm online. And more we talk about this in the generations, right? Because people kind of start using phones, and that's the relationship that they have, not with the individuals. So if you look at this, you are trying to balance results and relationships, right? And I call this a triangle. Results, you get it, check mark, relationships, group of people, and there's you. So a lot of people ask, where should the balance be? So here's the thought. If it goes more towards you, your own ego, you will not be able to get results, nor relationships. That is, a lot of people say, hey, you know what? He's full of it, right? Or she's full of it. She is, just talking about themselves. They don't worry about me. About 3 weeks ago, I was in a social interaction. I was talking to somebody, and she said, "Hey, my boss. I'm in a new team, and there are 10 of us, and my I have no relationship with my boss. I feel unseen." This is, the other person talking about, I feel unseen. And they kind of shared this with a couple of other people in their teams. And they're not just like one, there were at least 5 people who felt that there was no relationship with the boss. So, and there was, it's like, okay, I want results, results. I want you to do this, but there was no relationship. So that could be one, right? You could be driving results, you could be all about yourself, or you could be driving only relationships, which is, you might be a nice guy, you might be a nice person, but you will not get the results. So the question that people ask is, where should the balance be? And the balance should be right in the middle. So now the question is, you decide where the balance is, but you have to balance. You cannot go towards yourself or your results or your relationships. Now, with this, let me again do a quick poll, launch quick poll, and basically see, for your challenge that you identified in your mind, and for the zone that you feel that you're in, learning new things or in a fear, where do you think your balance is? So this is the balance poll. Hope you guys can see the poll. Where is your center? And you can select answer. Okay, some of you don't see the poll. Let me try to do that, launch it again. Okay, I'm ending the poll and launching the poll again. Can I do that? Can I relaunch the poll? Relaunch the poll. Okay. Relaunch. Okay. No, it's gone back to a different poll. Sorry about that. The balance poll. Okay, there it is. Hope you can see the poll again. Okay.
Yeah, I can see it, Bikram.
Yeah. Now I got on the chat that a couple of you have said results. All three of you have said results, right? So that's the thing you have to think about. What are the relationships that I need to establish to get the results for my challenge? And if you go too much towards results, And we are in a group of other coaches who meet regularly. In fact, there's one today. We just have lunch together, and we share each other's learnings. A lot of coaches have come and told me that there are a lot of organizations that are very results driven, and you must have heard this: people get burnt out. And then you've heard this term, quite quitting. People quit. In a sense, they stay in the organization, but you're not getting the results that you need, right? Earlier it used to be the great resignation. People would leave. Just after pandemic, there was a lot of resignation that people were doing, right? So basically, you have to think about this is the ingredient of the third ingredient, which is where do I establish my balance, right? If I keep going result as a result, do I have time for myself? Or have I also alienated some, a boss or a coworker or a teammate in order to get the result? So there's a lot of emotional intelligence in this, and I do a webinar, once every 3 or 4 months on emotional EI. There's a lot of EI linked to this. How do you kind of establish that in your workplace and as a leader, both, right? Okay, any questions so far about these three before I go into the fourth one? And again, I think the fourth one, I've kind of, I always start off with every meeting with my client, and we always talk about dashboard, but I hear the perspective is what is it that we are trying to do, right? Not the ingredients of the dashboard. So no questions so far. Okay, cool. So let's talk about the dashboard. So the picture there is a dashboard. We all understand what's a dashboard, right? The little story here that I want to talk about is my first car. The dashboard looked like this. Okay, it just told me four things. Told me how much fuel do I have, whether the engine is overheating or not, or going too fast, and whether I'm within speed. And this, this is basically how the dashboard looked. It was a Nissan car at that time called Datsun Sentra, and that's it. This is how the thing looked. Very, very simple. Four things that I have to monitor, right? And my current car, the dashboard looks like this. Many, many things that I need to monitor or look at. And here is schematic about how the dashboard of a modern day car would look like. It'll tell you how much fuel is left for your next, whether you need to fill up, how miles or kilometers will go. It'll tell you the engine temperature. It'll tell you the outside temperature. It'll tell you so and so on and so forth. Right? So many things, and I'm sure all of you have experienced this in your cars. So here is another dashboard, which is very interesting. A modern day aircraft. Lot more things that are in the dashboard. So you can see, you can go from very simple, four things, to many, many complex. I can't even count how many things are on the dashboard, right? So that's a car. Let's take an example of a business. There are lots of business dashboards, right? People talk about, hey, give me a dashboard. There's a lot of software that pulls data and presents data in various forms, in pie charts, in bar graphs, so on and so forth. Basically, the dashboard tells you the health of the business, just like the car dashboard tells you the health of a car. So the bigger question is, where is my own dashboard? My personal dashboard. How do I know whether I'm going in the right direction? Right? Because remember, I identified a challenge. I want to grow, and I want to go towards that challenge. But am I going the right direction or am I going in the wrong direction? Right. So that's one of the things that a dashboard will tell me, in addition to many other things. So the bigger question that people think is, how do I build a dashboard? Because once you establish you need a personal dashboard, you're like, okay, what are the elements of the dashboard? How do I build the dashboard? And it's like a Lego blocks, right? You need to take the blocks and you want to build. And in this case, it builds a cube. But if you see, there are different colors in the cube, and which means, the metaphor here is there are different sensors that I need to do. I need to get the blue. And if I have to build exactly something that looks like this, how do I build it? Right. And then the other question is, what is needed to build it? What are the pieces that I need? But having said that, a dashboard has to be living and dynamic. It's like it is not like I build a dashboard like a chip. I put it in, it's pre-built, it's static, and it stays that way for 2 years. And I said, in technology, every 3 years things change. So you go from zone to zone to zone. So you need to know every time what is going on, right? And so how you need to build a dashboard which is living, dynamic, and tells you whether you're going in the right direction. Now, you might choose to look at it every week. You might choose to look at it every day. You might choose to look at it once a month. But anything more than that, that means you are in a state where things are plateaued and you're just doing the same thing again and again, because the dashboard will tell you that's what I'm doing, right? So, having said that, I just wanted to kind of show this little picture about, not only does a dashboard need to have sensors about sensing all of these things, but it also needs to give you a 360-degree view. Okay. So with that, I'm going to launch my final poll, right? Which is basically a very simple question. Do you have a dashboard? So one yes, one no. It should be simple, right? Do you have a dashboard? Do you have your own dashboard? Then you know where you're going. Okay, think about this. This is the fourth ingredient of impactful leadership. So I've kind of laid out all the four ingredients of impactful leadership: challenges, zones, balance, and dashboard. So with these four ingredients and any process, you could use the process that I outlined earlier, the ADAPT process. You could use some other process, but you need an impactful outcome, impactful leadership outcome, right? Going back to that picture. So now, I don't know why it keeps going. How do I go to the next slide? There it is. Okay. So we have about another 10 minutes, 12 minutes left. I'm going to take two examples and then see if you guys have any other questions. You could either use chat or you could unmute yourself to ask. But let me quickly run through these two examples and the cases. These are real cases that I went through with real clients, and basically, obviously, I've kept it anonymized to protect the innocent. But let's start with the first one, right? The first was a very senior person in a very big company. When I say very big, it is one of the Fortune 50 companies, right? And he, in this case, he was leading a very big team and has been in the company for about 25 years. And he chose to be in that company, continue, right? He took various jobs within the company, big technology company. And he is in that phase in his life, or was in that phase in his life. This was about a couple of years ago. That he wanted to kind of step out from managing people and teams, very senior person, as said, and become an individual contributor. Basically said, hey, I'm in that phase of my life that I want to, I know I can do these things, but I spend a lot of time managing managers. Remember one my first poll had that managing managers. He was a manager of managers. So he said, I spend a lot of time doing that, getting reports. I could be more efficient, more productive from a challenge perspective to do that. So let's see what happened, right? From a challenge perspective, he said, my individual performance can increase. I can do much better, right? And I could team up with the same team that I'm now leading. I could become a part of the team, or I also become part of other teams, right? Architects and others who are there. And I want to manage this vision. This is my vision. So remember, one of the challenges that manage new vision is like not just your boss changes or CEO changes, your own personal vision changes. In this case, this individual's personal vision change. At some point in his career, his vision was to grow in the organization. And as we know, you grow from individual contributor to manager to manager to managers to, a very senior leader in the organization. And now he wants to still be a leader, but in his individual capacity. So that's the new vision that he needs to manage. The next, so what we did was basically go through the same process. We did assessment of where he was and where he wanted to go. Of course, he was in his comfort zone. He was in control, and he wanted to step out. All these fears came. What is it that I need to communicate to my boss, my team? All of these fears started to come, and then what do I need to keep doing? What do I need to stop doing? What do I need to start doing as I go into this new role, right? And last but not the least was, of course, as a part of that, learn new tools and techniques, because we talked about the zone of knowledge. Apply an experiment, try it out, right? But finally, it was also the fact about I need to build a balance with the leader, and I need to communicate to the org. So there was a whole relationship and result, because the result he wanted was to become an individual contributor. The relationships, he didn't want to break any of the relationships. And his biggest fear was, if as I go to this organization and tell them, are they going to think that I am, what are they going to think? And he had multiple things, right? What are they going to think? Why do I want to do this? Of course, what we did was we kind of addressed this. We built a dashboard mutually, right? This is working together. We did 8 different aspects which continue to evolve. And here is a quotation from him after these interactions. And this is one of his quotations. The other thing that he told me personally was, this he put up, by the way, officially. But one of the things he told me personally was he was at peace with himself, which was very important in this whole outcome. So this is one example that I want to talk about. This is an individual who's managing teams, kind of go. So you can use these impactful leadership ingredients to kind of figure out what is the outcome that you want. The second example that I have here, I'm just looking at the clock here. We've got some time. Is a bigger company acquired a small company. And I had clients in the small company, and they were like, it was like a puzzle, right? So what the bigger company was trying to do is take this, look at this example, right? They actually acquired 3 other companies, right? So Blue is the company that I'm talking about. So this is a Blue company. They acquired 2 other companies, right, in different geographies. But the Blue company, basically, who I engage with, they said, hey, now we have a new vision. There's a new the company is acquiring us, the vision is changing. We don't have a CEO anymore. We are going to have a CEO of the company that's acquiring us. Where do I fit? What do I do? Right? And is my team going to be there? What is the performance of the team? What do I have to do to speak up about the performance of the team? These are the kind of challenges that they had. Of course, they had to learn about new skills, new knowledge, just because there was a different, very, very simple thing. They were using a particular system to keep track of the human resources, and all of a sudden now the acquiring company came in. Now they have to go to a different system. All these managers, all these leaders, and all the individuals had to learn new things, right? They are, think about it, they are not being productive in what they are supposed to produce, which was actually an embedded database. They were doing all this stuff. They had to kind of go into this zone and learn stuff. And there was a lot of fears there. They needed to assess new relationships with new peers and leaders, right? Earlier, in the blue company, they were like, I was talking to, my client basically was somebody who managed a team of 20 people, and he had 4 peers, and all of a sudden now he has 12 peers, and then he doesn't know who the other 8 are. And then the relationships have to be balanced, and there's a new role in that team, and a new boss, and all of that, right? And finally, had to build a dashboard. Again, same thing, rapidly evolving, and there was new information every day. Oh, now I know about this other product that the red company makes, or the red, now part of the same company, but the red that team makes, and what can we leverage, and is it competing with our product, and so on and so forth, right? So basically, there's a quote again from my client who says, he was afraid of going in and even preparing for meetings and presentation. And there are all kinds of new, when you go into your group of peers, you only know 3 people, you don't know the other 8, and so on and so forth. So we went through this whole exercise, understand the 4 ingredients, because the outcome was very clear, right? You needed to kind of have a successful integration into the new company. So there's another example here. The ingredients are the same. We kind of looked at that, identified everything, used the process, and came to a successful outcome. Okay, so with that, we have 3 more minutes left, and I'm going to quickly go through the last 3 slides. Here are some resources. And there's this recording that you can look at. There's a paper that came up in Harvard Business Review, I think in '99, written by Peter Drucker, whom we know as like the father of modern management, or as we talk about it. And then the worksheet that I talked about earlier, which I built, all the ingredients of impactful leadership. If you want to download all 3, just go to that QR code, and because there are 3 resources, I will get an alert and I have to send it to you. If you go to standard thing, you can only download one resource. So, what is it that basically I personally help people with, depending on the investment that people do. I do either individual programs, either at the leadership level or executive level, or I do group programs at the Impactful Leadership Group, or Leading with EI. These are the 2 programs that I run, and I think all 3 of you are connected to me, but that was just a QR code to connect to LinkedIn. And then in addition, I do these, and the coaching thing, and which some of you may or may not know what it is. I partner with the client in a thought-provoking and creative process to inspire you to maximize your professional and personal potential. So that's what we do. That definition is from the International Coaching Federation of what a coach does. So this is the kind of help that we can do. And what you just saw today was things that I rolled out from my program which I run called Managing Impactful Leadership. If you want to know more, there's a QR code there. And I do this like over 6 weeks, 3 sessions, 3 90-minute sessions, plus 2 individual coaching sessions of 30 minutes each. And that's basically where we go into more of, the first session talks about, as you see those pictures below, is the direction, and we talk about challenges. The second session talks about basically the balance and the dashboard. And the third session is all devoted to emotional intelligence. So with that, I know we are at time. If there are any questions, let's do that before I go to my last slide. The last slide is this little quotation that I found. I used to always keep thinking about what's the difference between a leader and a manager. And Peter Drucker said, management is doing things right. Leadership is doing the right things. And I just love that quote, as I put it in there. With that, if you guys want to kind of share what was most helpful for you, what was most useful to you, what was most valuable to you in this session, and if you have any questions, you could ask on the chat or unmute and ask.
Hey, Vikram, I have a question.
Yeah. Right.
When we're looking at the balance between outcomes, relationships, and ourselves, is there any data that points to which one of those has the greatest effect? Is it because it's kind of the you is more what you know, the relationships is who you know, and both of those are pointing towards your outcomes. And you often hear, it's not what you know, it's who you know, as a bit of a maxim. Do relationships end up driving greater success and outcomes than anything that we can do for ourselves, or is it more dependent on what we do that drives those outcomes that we're seeking?
Yeah, so this is an interesting question, Jordan. And then, next week you and I have a one-on-one, so we'll talk about this more. But one of the things here is what is the result, what is the outcome that you need, right? And it is a little tricky because in a sense you don't want to be seen as manipulative, that you're building only relationship with people who give you positive outcomes, right? But you have to build relationships enough that you don't go to that person only when you want that outcome.
Mm-hmm.
You need to build the relationship before, right? And that is the important part of this, right? I mean, I've been building network with people, everyone I meet, everyone who's on my LinkedIn, I know everybody personally, right? It's not like I'm accepting all LinkedIn requests, but then I'm building the relationship. Who knows at what time an outcome I need, right? And so basically, you have to think about this in a positive sense, that the relationships give you the outcome, but it's you at the end of the day.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
Any other? I know Bhavesh had to leave. I think that if there are no other questions, we'll stop this. I have to stop the recording first. And I'm not sure if I put in a quick survey on this, but if it is, it'll pop up on your screen. All right. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for joining.
Thank you, Vikram.
Thanks, Baker. I appreciate it, sir.
Thank you.